Welcome back to another well-timed episode of What If. Today, we're asking 3 questions that will stretch out the concept of time and examine how it shapes our existence. Maybe we'll even change your understanding of life as we know it in the process. First, imagine waking up in a distant future where your body has evolved 1,000 years overnight. Your new natural abilities are just the start. We've also got some technological enhancements that will play a huge part in your futuristic self. Then, get ready for a continental shakeup with some earthquakes that last for a full year. How would we adapt to never-ending rumbling beneath our feet? You might be surprised at how creative we'll get with our buildings. Oh, and I hope you're not arachnophobic. And we'll slow things way down as we take a look at what happens if you don't go to sleep for a week. What happens to your body and your mind when you skip out on 7 nights of Z's? And if a week sounds bad, wait till you learn how long some people have stayed up. First, did you know that humans are evolving faster today than at any other time in our existence? And that advancements in AI and health technology are stacking up to forge us a future where health issues and undesirable traits, goodbye cowlick, will be a thing of the past. Too bad science didn't figure this out in time for my grade school picture days.
Do you ever think that human evolution is a little slow? What if we cranked up the speed and had you evolve 1,000 years in one day? In what ways would your appearance change? How would new technology shape your life? And how would it change the way you think? This is What If, and here's what would happen if you evolved 1,000 years in one day. About 10,000 years ago, your ancestors spread to every continent on Earth, except for Antarctica. They had already started to farm, herd animals, and settle down into villages. With all the changes in our living conditions since then, humans have evolved 100 times faster than at any other time. In the last 150 years, we've grown 10 centimeters and started living an average of 20 years longer. Fast forward another 1,000 years of human evolution, and could it be possible to live forever? If you jump-started your evolution and evolved 1,000 years overnight, all the changes might feel a little awkward. For starters, you might become smaller. Yeah, you would be living on an overcrowded planet with scarce resources. Our bodies might conserve more energy. This would come with a certain amount of growing pains, or rather, shrinking pains. But you would wake up feeling better than you did the day before. That's because tiny nanobots inside your body would be enhancing your natural abilities. These nanobots would be small, about 1/100th of the width of a strand of hair, and they could monitor every aspect of your body's health. If you have diabetes, for example, these little workers would regulate your glucose and insulin levels. You could discover that compared to your unevolved friends, you're suddenly thinking faster. Yeah, your brain would benefit from advanced artificial intelligence that would be as fast, if not faster, than the human brain. With such advanced AI, you could do things that are impossible by today's standards. Maybe you could see frequencies outside the visible spectrum because special cameras would enhance your eyes. You'd be able to recognize faces and names at lightning speed. Your mind would have its own version of Facebook. Let's call it Brain Book. You could find that you suddenly have a new grasp of languages. So you could discover that you now speak Mandarin or Cantonese. These could be the standard global language in the future. considering that 1.39 billion people speak Chinese today. Now, if you still understand me, that could mean that English has retained its position as a global language. It could also be that you now understand and speak all languages. This would be thanks to advanced translation enhancers in your brain. You could talk to anyone, anywhere, without ever needing to learn the language. But if those enhancers in your brain stopped working, you would discover that maybe you aren't that much smarter than your peers. You could take a quick intelligence test to find out you aren't even as smart as you used to be. This could be because your brain evolved to be dependent on all these new developments in AI. Without their assistance, simple tasks you perform at work could seem complex and challenging. The most dramatic change of all is one you wouldn't notice right away. But eventually, you would discover that your life expectancy has extended to around 150 years. That would be thanks in some part to the nanobots monitoring your health, but it would also be due to genetic modifications that could become commonplace in the future. Your genes would be engineered to remove diseases like cystic fibrosis or Huntington's disease. All these new developments in your body would feel unique and special if they happened to you overnight. But with all these changes occurring to humanity over the next 1,000 years, you'd find that we would all start to look and act the same.
Advancements in technology and biology may redefine what it means to be human. I mean, just think about it. With nanobots enhancing our abilities and being able to highlight and delete hereditary diseases, we might evolve into something entirely new. But relying on all this technology, would that make us more capable or less so? All right, let me take you back to the year 2020. Remember that? A lot of us remember it as the longest year of our lives. Things got a little spicy. Everything was pretty shaky there for a while, but what if it was our planet that was shaky, maybe even quaky, for an entire year? How would we navigate life with the ground always moving beneath our feet? From building designs that can withstand relentless shaking to coping mechanisms for our mental health, the constant quakes would challenge us in countless ways.
Earth can be full of extremes, but today there's only one extreme. Non-stop earthquakes that last an entire year. What would it be like to live under such shaky circumstances? How would buildings hold up in these conditions? And what could you do to adapt to this rumbling lifestyle? This is What If, and here's what would happen if earthquakes lasted a year. Earth's tectonic plates are constantly moving, and as they move past each other, pressure builds up. Eventually, that force overcomes the friction, and this causes an earthquake. Earthquakes like this could occur at any time. And if they happened all the time, it would be the ultimate test of the resilience of many buildings. While buildings may be good at handling vertical forces from weight and gravity, they're not so well equipped for the side-to-side forces of earthquakes. Many innovative designs and materials, such as flexible foundations, shock absorption, and memory alloys, could be used to make buildings more earthquake-proof. But under such extreme circumstances, would the only safe place for you be in the middle of a field? On average, there are 20,000 earthquakes each year. If one occurred near you, how would it feel? Well, that depends on how close you'd be to the epicenter. Close by, you would experience a sudden large jolt, followed by strong shaking. This would last 10 to 30 seconds. Even in the most massive quakes, this shaking doesn't last longer than a few minutes. But in this scenario, the vibration wouldn't stop. Instead of 10 seconds, it would go on for an entire year. It would be challenging to stand up through all this. Everything not bolted down in your house would likely topple to the ground. Violent shaking would shift buildings off their foundations, creating massive property damage. Even the most resilient buildings would struggle to withstand the constant vibration. The financial and human costs would be astronomical, and if the earthquake kept going, these costs would keep rising. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people would be displaced from their homes. Many would die. Now, if you were lucky enough to be further from the epicenter, this would all be less dramatic. Usually, you'd only feel a gentle bump. But because the earthquake wouldn't end for a while, you'd feel a permanent rolling and shaking sensation. Your senses would be in a constant state of conflict. Your eyes would observe one thing while your muscles feel another. And your inner ears would sense something completely different. These mixed signals would overload your brain, and you'd be feeling nauseous most of the time. Even if you don't usually experience motion sickness, you'd feel queasy, and there wouldn't be any relief. Experiencing a regular earthquake could leave you hypervigilant, on constant alert for the next one. You could be depressed because your home no longer feels safe. But living like this for one full year? You'd have to rethink every aspect of your life. If the earthquakes remained at a magnitude of less than 1 on the Richter scale, you probably wouldn't notice them. In the small desert town of Anza, California, residents experienced small earthquakes almost every day and often several times in a row. There were 6,913 earthquakes between 2017 and 2018. But they could still live their everyday lives. But if the earthquakes were higher on the Richter scale, you'd have to get used to constant noise pollution. This would affect your body's stress response and quality of sleep. In the long term, this could lead to heart disease or even stroke. Life would be challenging, but it wouldn't stop. You'd have to find some way to get used to the quakes, just like many people in the Midwestern US have adjusted their daily life to the threat of tornadoes. The biggest challenge would be rethinking how we design our buildings. There are already many innovative techniques that could reinforce these structures, but you'd have to get more creative. One out-of-the-box building material that researchers could explore is spider silk. This material stiffens under pressure, and when even more stress is applied, it expands close to its breaking point and hardens again. This is precisely how a spider's web reacts to the impact of an insect. The damage from the collision is limited to the span between spokes of the web. The shock is significantly reduced, so the net remains intact.
Yeah, imagine trying to hold on to your sanity while everything around you is in constant flux. Reminds me of working here at What If. Just thinking about it makes me need a nap. And speaking of naps, you probably know that most people sleep roughly 8 hours a night, and there are 24 hours in a day. So do the math, that means most of us will sleep away 1/3 of our lives. That's more than 200,000 hours spent curled up like a cozy little baby. But what if we took a short break from sleep? 1 week. Giving up 7 measly nights in a row? That shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? Well, what do you think would happen to your body and your mind after 7 days with no rest? And who would you upset more, your boss or your family? Well, buckle up as we dive in and ask, what if you didn't sleep for a week?
Imagine all the extra time you'd have if you didn't waste 8 hours a day sleeping. More time for work, family, and fun. Uh-oh, looks like you're already hallucinating. What would be the short-term effects of not sleeping? How would it impact your daily life? And what would happen to you after your insomnia challenge was over? This is What If, and here's what would happen if you didn't sleep for a week. You spend about 1/3 of your life sleeping. While you catch some Z's, your body conserves energy, stores new information, and even gets rid of toxic waste. You need different amounts of sleep during your life. In your first year, you needed up to 17 hours of sleep each day. And before age 12, you need up to 13 hours. As an adult, 7 to 9 hours each night should do the trick. Cut sleep out of your life, and you could be on the road to extreme fatigue, paranoid delusions, and even death. If you plan to go an entire week without sleep, you'd probably want to start things off on the right note. How about an adequate 8 hours of shut-eye the night before? Well, restful sleep is more than lying down with your eyes closed. There are several stages. At first, everything slows down. That includes your brain waves and your heart rate. Your temperature lowers. Eventually, your whole body relaxes. During deep sleep, your body replenishes its energy and repairs its cells. And in the last stage, rapid eye movement or REM sleep, your brain activity increases again. This is when you dream and process information. Your first day without sleep would be pretty typical. You'd be as energetic and as alert as usual. After a full day of work and activity, you'd start to feel fatigued. But around bedtime, you'd have to force yourself to stay awake. After 24 hours, you'd already feel the effects of skipping a night of sleep. You'd have trouble paying attention, your hand-eye coordination would be a little clumsy, and your ability to make decisions would be slightly impaired too. You should not get behind the wheel of a car. Being awake for a full day would be like having the blood alcohol concentration of 0.1%. That's well over the legal limit. As the day wears on, your appetite, mood, and stress levels would be significantly affected too. After 36 hours awake, hormones like cortisol, insulin, or human growth hormone would be out of balance. You could also make riskier decisions, be inflexible in your reasoning, and have impaired speech. Hopefully, your job isn't one where the wrong word choice or intonation could have outsized consequences for the world. Staying awake through the second night in a row would be a real struggle. At this point, you could even experience so-called microsleeps, when your brain would enter involuntary sleep-like states. Waking up from these would be disorienting and confusing. Seeing the dawn again, you wouldn't feel so great. After 48 hours without sleep, your immune system would be disrupted. Your body would be less prepared for threats to your health, like bacteria and viruses. On day 3, your body's overwhelming urge to sleep would impact your ability to think. You wouldn't be able to perform basic tasks or pay attention. Hey, wake up! You'd become irritable, anxious, and even depressed. You'd have a hard time recognizing the differences between angry and happy facial expressions. After 72 hours, your perception would be significantly altered, and you'd still have half the week to go. You could experience hallucinations. Seeing things that aren't there. Or have illusions, misinterpreting things that are there. Despite all these dangers, somehow you'd make it through the 168th hour. That's 1 full week. Hopefully, you'd still have your job, your family, and your sanity. At long last, you could finally sleep again. If you were able to. When Tyler Shields, an American photographer, experimented with staying awake for 40 days, it took him 8 hours to finally get to sleep. Okay, let's not mince words. Sleeping isn't for the weak, it's for the living. If you're worried about an exam or a deadline, trying to go without sleep, even for one night, could set you on a dangerous path.
Yeah, I guess that highlights just how crucial rest is for our well-being. Now, from extreme fatigue to hallucinations, it's clear that skipping sleep is no joke, despite our writer's best efforts. Really, not a lot of jokes today. My apologies. But I hope you enjoyed these looks at how time and how we spend it impacts our evolution, resilience, and even our health. Until next time, keep asking, what if?